guys, it's Miss Vinian, and we are on Flip Video 1 for World War II, and these are the learning targets we're hopefully going to get covered today. Learning Target 6.1, describe American foreign policy during World War I and World War II. Learning Target 6.2, discuss the rise of totalitarianism, fascism, its leaders, and the American response to it. And lastly, explain the reasons for American entry into World War II. So we'll see if we make it that far today. I'm not sure. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Awesome. So first we're going to start with the rise of dictators, which is 6.2, and look at these dictators who ran totalitarian governments. Make sure you understand totalitarian government is a dictator who has complete control, someone who runs that country and whatever they say goes. They don't have a Congress, they don't have things like we have, checks and balances. Whatever they say goes. So we're going to start with Joseph Stalin. And after the Russian Revolution, the Communist Party established some communist governments throughout the Russian Empire, and they renamed to the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. So this is the USSR. They instituted one-party rule, and that's kind of what happens with Russia there. So he becomes the new Soviet dictator, and it was a massive effort to industrialize his country. So if you look down here, he wanted to industrialize them using a 5-year plan. And he did some of that. Steel production increased from 4 million to 18 million at that time, but the wages declined. The other thing is what he did is he took family farms, they combined them, and they turned them into collectives or government-owned farms. And so a lot of those people were killed off and died in famines. So peasants who resisted this were killed. Okay, so other things with Stalin here, besides this nice little mustache he has there, he crushed his opponents and took control after Vladimir Lenin died, like earlier. And the thing about Stalin is that he brought his country to world power through basically the means of his own. He was very forceful. He was against all opposition. He took out political enemies, and not just political enemies, but artists and also people who were smart. And so he had the KGB, which was his secret police that killed thousands of army officers and very prominent Bolsheviks who opposed Stalin. He was very fearful of the growing power of Nazi Germany. So keep in mind here that Joseph Stalin will be on the Allied powers, but he's also a totalitarian dictator as well. He's very ruthless. Okay. So we have next Benito Mussolini, who is from Italy. He is a fascist dictator, and fascism is an aggressive nationalistic movement that considers the nation more important than the individual. So fascists and communists don't really get along at this point. They're not the same thing, but they're still dictators, but they're not the same thing. So this is Mussolini. They called him Il Duce. And he also was the leader, like I said, of Italy, and he was allied with Germany. So he really wants to restore the glory of the old ancient Roman days, and he starts, causing a little bit of trouble. And like I said, he's going to be on the Axis powers with Germany. Then we have the one that I know everybody knows about from Germany, Adolf Hitler, who is in his party type of government is Nazis. And so the Nazis were very extreme in their beliefs. So if you look down here where it says National Socialism, aka Nazism, that's what that is, the National Socialist Party. And they are very aggressive. They're anti-Semitic, so they don't agree with Jews. Germany wants to relive the glory days, and Germany wants to kind of build itself back up from what happened in World War I. And they also want to unite all German-speaking nations. So basically, if you speak German, Hitler wants control. So this is a fascist-type government, and like it says on here in the goals and ideas, inflation and depression weakened the democratic government in Germany and allowed an opportunity for Hitler to rise to power. Okay, then we go over to Japan. Hideki Tojo. His type of government is militarism. Sorry about the bell. The goals and ideas for him are as though Japan already had an empire, Emperor Hirohito. He took control. He could not stand up to the powerful generals, and he was worshipped by the people, so they kept him in office, but really Tojo is leading the ranks over there. So Japan realizes, hey, we are sort of a small country and we're surrounded by water. We need more resources. So how are they going to get them? Imperialism. They're going to go out and they're going to try to get them. And these are some of the places that they are going to invade. Korea, Manchuria, and the rest of China. The League of Nations did nothing at this time because if you'll remember, the League of Nations was not that powerful because the United States had turned it down. Okay. So Japan invades China, needs resources. China's rich with resources. All right, so that kind of keep that in mind. So as we're going, what is America's response to this rise of dictators? With the rise of dictators comes tensions between the different countries. So just kind of keep in mind, America's very isolationist still. So after World War I, they decided, hey, we're not going to get involved in everybody's messes anymore. The only thing they worried about was the Western Hemisphere and being a good neighbor to Latin America. So it kind of takes it back to like the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, talking about how America was invested in Latin America and the Western Hemisphere. They're worried about the dictators, but they're not really affected by them yet. And then a lot of things, a lot of the war debts had not been paid back yet from Germany and from the World War I in general. And really at this time, they're just focused on problems with America. So if you remember, this is the 1930s. We just talked about the Great Depression, so you know what's going on in America. So how do they respond to this? Roosevelt implements 3 different neutrality acts in 1935, 1936, and 1937. In them, and these are blue, so you can just pick 2. No loans to war countries. We're not going to sell or export arms, ammunition, or other materials of war. People are not going to go to and from these war countries. In the Act of 1937, he allowed trading for war goods by cash only. So if you look, the differences here is at first he's saying, no, we are not going to help any of these countries. We're going to stick to ourselves. But by the end of 1937, that Neutrality Act, he finally allows trading for war goods. So if Britain wanted to come and pay for, they wanted a ship, then they had to pay for it. We're not going to trade with them or give it to them. And so you can see Roosevelt kind of changes what he's saying. At first he's saying no, and then he kind of starts siding with one side, and that's going to be the Allied powers. Okay, the arsenal of democracy. What does that even mean? Okay, basically America is officially neutral when this war begins. And so FDR increases military production, and he kind of goes around the neutrality acts once the Nazis start winning, because he doesn't want the Nazis to win. Because if Germany takes over Europe, where is Hitler going to stop? Is he going to come across the seas? Who knows? So you have him kind of making decisions that make America on the side of the Allied powers. And then he runs for a 3rd term, and people elect him because they want someone who knows what's going on. Then we have the Lend-Lease Act, which was passed, and that was one of your vocab words, and that's where we only lend weapons to certain countries, and mainly they were Allied countries, so kind of, like I said, puts us on the side of the Allied powers. And the Axis powers, they know what's going on. They know that America is like loaning things when they shouldn't be. And then the U.S. embargoes oil and scrap iron sales to Japan. Invades China, and China is an ally of America. So America says, hey, you've invaded China, and we're allies with them, so we're going to actually stop selling you oil and iron. So it kind of takes it back to the alliances that happened before World War I. You can see that the same sort of things happening. You got the buildup of the dictators, and you have alliances coming, and this is also imperialism. So it's pretty much all of the same reasons. Okay, so the world is at war, and we're about to get into like all the details of why. I know I haven't covered that part yet. We're about to get to it. So on the Allied powers, these are, I want you to write the ones in red, and then the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan. As you can see, Italy, if you remember, was on the Allied powers in World War I, but in World War II, they're in the Axis powers. Okay, so you can kind of see the division, and some of the countries that are fighting each other are the same. Okay, so in 1940, FDR wins his 3rd term, and you can see like he loses some of the states in the Great Plains, but mainly he's going to win. And that's good for America because they're going to have someone in office that knows what's going on. So the America First Committee, formed in 1940, it's estimated 800,000 members at its height. These people are against the war. So they advocated for building up the U.S. defenses and staying out of Europe's problems. The biggest supporter of this was Charles Lindbergh, but this is going to fail out because 4 days after Pearl Harbor, they're going to be disbanded because people are all for the war after the attack of Pearl Harbor. FDR's For Freedom speech in 1941, he gave a State of the Union address that talked about the freedoms of this world. And basically, like he said, we're going to help you. We seek to make secure these 4 things. And those 4 things are speech and expression, freedom of religion, the freedom from want, and the freedom from fear. And if you are a government that is making those things not possible, then we're not on your side. And this is kind of like a declaration that America is going to side with the Allied powers. Okay, and then finally, before America enters war, in 1940, they're going to have a peacetime draft. So this is the first time that we're not at war yet, but they go ahead and have a draft. All men 21 to 35 are required to register, and later that turns to 18 to 65. And it requires men picked up to serve for 12 months. And they served in the U.S. or its possessions. And when we say possessions, that means like the Pacific. Okay, and so that's going to be it for today. Next time we're going to talk about why the war even started, but now you kind of know why America wasn't really interested in being involved and where America was at the beginning, which was really important since you probably haven't taught that yet. This is U.S. history and not world anymore, so this should be some new information for you. So make sure you got this down. That should have covered learning targets 6.1 and 6.2 and 6.3. So have a great weekend. See you guys later.